April 1967, Palo Alto, California, room C3 at Cubberley High School. 30 sophomores sit with their backs straight, feet flat on the floor, hands pressed against their desks. Nobody slouches. Nobody whispers. Nobody moves until the teacher nods. When a student has something to say, they stand, address the teacher by name, and answer in 3 words or fewer. The room is silent between responses. Not the silence of boredom, the silence of compliance. These are 15-year-olds in one of the wealthiest, most educated zip codes in America, children of Stanford professors and Silicon Valley engineers, and they are sitting at attention like cadets in a military academy. The man at the front of the room is 25 years old. He has been a teacher for less than a year. His name is Ron Jones, and 3 days from now, he will have 200 followers. It started with a question Jones could not answer. His contemporary world history class had been studying Nazi Germany, and a student asked the one thing every teacher dreads. How could ordinary German citizens claim they did not know what was happening? How could millions of people watch their neighbors disappear and say nothing? Jones had no good answer, so he decided to build one. He told his class they were going to run an experiment. He would be the dictator. They would be the movement. He did not submit this idea to the principal. He did not consult a psychologist. He did not tell the parents. He was 25 and had graduated from Stanford the year before. He believed he understood the machinery of power well enough to turn it on and off like a faucet. On the first morning, he wrote 3 words on the chalkboard: strength through discipline. He drilled them on posture. He drilled them on speed. He timed how fast they could take their seats after the bell and made them do it again until the number was lower. By the end of the first class, something had shifted. The students were not just following the rules, they were enjoying the rules. Homework improved, participation increased. The kids who never spoke were suddenly answering questions. Jones noticed that it was not the brightest students who responded most eagerly, and it was not the troublemakers. It was the middle, the invisible ones, the ones who had never been good enough at anything to matter. For the first time in their school careers, they were winning. Day 2, he named it, the third wave. He told them the name came from surfer mythology, that the third wave is always the strongest. He introduced a salute, a curved hand pressed against the chest, and ordered them to use it outside of class. They did. Students walking through the hallways of Cubberley High School began greeting each other with a gesture borrowed from movements that had killed millions of people. They did this between bites of cafeteria pizza, on the way to gym class, in front of teachers who did not yet understand what they were seeing. By day 3, the class had grown from 30 to 43. 13 students had cut their regular classes to be part of it. Jones added strength through action to the board and handed out membership cards. 3 of the cards were marked with a red X. Those students were now the secret police. Their job was to report anyone who broke the rules. Jones expected 3 reports. He got 20. Students who had not been assigned to spy were spying anyway. Then he met Robert. Robert was big for his age and invisible in every other way. He was not athletic. He was not academic. He copied his weekly reports word for word from library reference books. The only reason Jones knew him at all was because Robert ate lunch alone in Jones's classroom. The third wave gave Robert something he had never had: a role, a place, a reason to smile. On Wednesday afternoon, Jones noticed Robert following him through the halls. He asked him what he was doing. Robert smiled. Jones had never seen him smile. He said he was Jones's bodyguard. He was afraid something might happen to him. He asked permission. Jones said yes, and from that moment, Robert walked on his right side everywhere he went, opening doors, standing at silent attention in the faculty lounge while Jones drank coffee. When an English teacher told Robert he was not allowed in the teacher's room, Robert informed her that he was not a student. He was a bodyguard. Jones held trials. Students who cracked jokes about the third wave were hauled in front of the class. Jones would pull a name from his pocket and say his secret police had identified a rule breaker. He would ask the class to vote. Guilty, 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 they chanted. The convicted student was expelled from the movement and banned from class. One student, Mark Hancock, later said it scared the hell out of him. Not everyone went along. Sherry Tousley was one of Jones's best students. On the second day, she raised her hand and asked a question that would have been unremarkable in any normal classroom. "Why can't we just say what we think?" Jones sent her to the library. He continued sending anyone who questioned the movement to the library. Tousley told the school librarian why she had been removed from class. The librarian had grown up in Nazi Germany. She did not need a history lesson. She told the 15-year-old girl that she could not take this sitting down, that she had to do something. That night, Tousley and her father drove to Cubberley after hours and hung anti-third wave posters in the hallways, high enough that students could not easily tear them down. She signed each one "The Breakers." By first period the next morning, every poster was gone. For 40 years, not a single person except her father knew that The Breakers was one sophomore girl and a stapler. By day 4, over 200 students from all 3 Palo Alto high schools had joined. Students were cutting classes across the district to attend. Jones's single classroom of 30 had become 80. A parent who was a World War II veteran showed up at the school, furious, because he recognized exactly what he was seeing. A rabbi called Jones at home after other parents raised concerns. The rabbi was polite, understanding. He told Jones not to worry. He would calm everyone down. Jones later wrote that the rabbi had become part of the experiment without realizing it. Jones was losing his own argument. He had been telling himself every night that this was educational, that the learning justified the method. But by Thursday he was acting as a dictator instinctively, correcting posture in conversations that had nothing to do with the experiment. His wife, Diana, told him she did not like who he was becoming. She asked him what had happened to his playfulness, his questioning, his kindness. That night, Jones decided to end it. He told the students the third wave was not just their school, it was a national movement. A presidential candidate would reveal himself on television the following day at a noon rally. On Friday, over 200 students filed into the small auditorium. Robert stood at Jones's side. Banners hung from the walls. Jones had recruited friends to pose as reporters and photographers. Guards stood at every door. The students sat in rows, saluting, chanting "Strength through discipline, strength through community, strength through action." At noon, Jones turned on the television. Static. The students sat in perfect posture, watching white noise, waiting for their leader to appear. Minutes passed. Nobody moved. 200 teenagers trained in 5 days to sit in formation and stare at nothing because someone they trusted told them something important was coming. Then the screen changed. Footage of the Nuremberg rally. Adolf Hitler. Thousands of Germans saluting in a gesture that looked almost exactly like the one the students had been using all week. Jones stepped forward. "There is no leader," he told them. "There is no national movement. You have been used, manipulated, shoved by your own desires into the place you now find yourself. You are no better or worse than the Germans you studied. You thought you would never fall for it. You fell for it in 5 days." Some students cried. Some ran for the doors. One student later said he half expected the doors to be locked. Robert was crying. The boy who had finally found something to belong to had just been told it was a lie. In the 4 years Jones remained at Cubberley, not a single student ever admitted to attending the rally. They talked about the experiment constantly. They analyzed it in class. But the rally itself was something they all wanted to forget. Jones was denied tenure 2 years later. He spent the next 3 decades working with people with disabilities in San Francisco. In 2010, 2 former students, Mark Hancock and Philip Neel, made a documentary called Lesson Plan. It was the first time many of them had spoken about it publicly. Hancock said he did not realize the full depth of what had happened until he started interviewing his old classmates. Everyone remembered it differently. Everyone remembered being more resistant than they were. Most people who hear this story are certain they would have been Sherry Tousley. They would have asked the question. They would have made the posters. They would have been the resistance. 200 students felt the same way on the Monday before it started. By Friday, 2 of them actually were. The rest were sitting in rows, watching static, waiting to be told what comes next.